Hey guys, I'm here. I jumped on a few minutes early just so I could get in here and make sure everything was working again. So I'm going to wait until 7 o'clock to really start, but just wanted to make sure that we have the room in here. All right, I believe it is 7 o'clock. Hi, Karen. Can you let me know if you can hear me? I tested it this time, so I'm hoping that you can hear me. So weird doing something and having no idea if you can hear me. And then this is all reversed. You can hear me. I'm so happy. All right. So it's like I just saw some of you. We are going to just start chatting about creative habits and see who else joins us. So I was going to do this face to face, and meaning that you actually saw me on camera. But because of the technical issues I had last time, I was scared to switch cameras. And when I got this one working, I said, that's good enough. So I'm here. Here's my hands. And I'm just going to work while we're talking, because if I'm in here and all this stuff is here, if not, I'm just going to fiddle with it. So feel free to grab a project. But I'll start off if you have questions relating to creative habits. So that's what I've been talking about in the newsletters this month, is giving yourself some time, giving yourself some space, and then getting in the habit of having a creative habit. So if you have questions, problems that have come up, maybe some obstacles that you've had, maybe there's something that you've had an obstacle, but you were able to find a way around it and you want to share it with everybody, feel free to use this little chat spot to talk to each other. A lot of you know each other. So, and then if you're watching this video later and you still have questions, feel free to drop them in the comments, and I will keep an eye on it. So to start about creative habits, I always like to share what I've done in order to have a creative habit and kind of keep that in my life all the time. So one thing that I had done was about 2 years ago, I made it a routine that whenever I was in the studio, I had to be doing something. It didn't matter what it was. It could be doodling on this page, but I had to be doing something. And I found that that got me in the habit of just doing something, anything. I don't have to think about the outcome. And a lot of the times, the things that I'm making don't have an outcome. And that's why they're just kind of laying around my desk. So, like a lot of I like to make these little collage bits, also known as paper crap. Other times, if you follow me on Instagram, you saw that I started a book using old flashcards that my son had. So I keep that around. I worked on that a little bit today. So I just like to have lots of things around me so that I can just keep going. Because if I walk in here and I don't feel like working on this, well, maybe I feel like working on this, or maybe I feel like working on the pile that's right over there that you can't see. So I always have so many things going on. I'm doing the color studies now. To me, in order to have a creative habit, I have to have lots of avenues. And I know that for some people, having lots of avenues can be a little paralyzing because maybe they don't know what to work on. But for me, it keeps me working because I do have self-diagnosed ADD. So I get bored with something and I move on, and I get bored and I move on. Thank you. My crap does look amazing. I have lots of crap. But so I like to have all of these things handy. This is that little abstract book that I've been working in, doing color studies, but doing an abstract. So for me, I have found that this keeps my creativity going. So as long as I have something else I can just grab and go, I also find that having a variety of projects that can take different amounts of time help me stay creative. So if I had something that always took me an hour when I was in here, I may never come in here because I don't always have an hour. Sometimes I have 20 minutes before I have to leave for something. So that's why, another reason, I can come in and like these little ephemera pieces, little paper crap pieces, I tend to do those a lot because it doesn't have a set time requirement. I can just do it whenever. And if I have 5 minutes, I can make, 10 of them. If I have a half an hour, I can make 412 of them and then not know what to do with them. But I like to have things that take me different amounts of time. So I said I was going to work while I was talking. I guess I'm not really good at that. I've just been moving stuff around and showing you all the pretty stuff. I wanted to pull out some new stuff that I've gotten, but I don't know where. Oh, I do. Hold on. Here, I'm going to show you new stuff real quick. We will pause from the creative habit. So has anybody else used this art glitter glue? I see it on a lot of videos, and I finally just decided to go ahead and try it because I was looking for a thin wet glue, but one that was a little thicker than matte medium, if that makes sense. And this, I think, is really good for gluing down the paper crap. If you don't want to put a whole layer of matte medium on the back, and maybe just want to glue around the edges, but I was just wondering if anybody else had used it. Well, Laura, you have it. Have you used it? Because we all have lots of things. So that was a little side note. I'm going to see if I have anything else. Oh, I got another gloss spray, but I haven't tried that one yet. I have lots of stuff around here. I mean, I know this little area right here that you can see looks messy, but the stuff that's off camera is even worse. That makes you feel any better. Or if you're a neat freak, you may not want to watch my channel. So let's go back to creative habits and ways that we can keep being creative, because I think that's something I think that's very important, because a lot of us are women and we tend to get wrapped up in our families' lives, our children's lives, our grandchildren's lives, the people in the neighborhood we might be helping, and we do all of these things for other people, but then we don't take the time that we really need for ourselves. And I know we talk about self-care and things like that, but self-care isn't always a bubble bath. Like, to me, my self-care is in this room. I have so many things in this room that make me happy and that remind me that I am just a creative person, and that I can take off some of those other hats that I wear all day and just come in here, and this is just for me. There's no purpose to it. I do like to share everything with you guys, but honestly, if I wasn't on YouTube or Instagram and I lived on the top of a mountain in Hawaii and I didn't have internet access, I would still do this even if nobody saw it. Because I feel like this is who I am, really deep down. So, whew, that got a lot deeper than I thought it was going to be. This might be therapy. I mean, I like that you bought it 6 years ago. Your glue might be dried up if it's 6 years old. I'm not sure. And yes, I did buy the little applicator because everybody that I saw use it had that little thin applicator, so I knew I had to have it, but we'll see. It looked fun. I mean, really, it's glue. We all need glue. Anyway, so creative habits, making them a part of your life. I know one thing that people talk to me about is I don't have a studio. I don't have a space. I don't have a lot of supplies. And I always tell them that just start with what you have. Buy cheap supplies. If you want to try watercolor, don't go buy a full set of Daniel Smith. Go buy a set of Crayola and make sure you really like it before you go and buy a bunch of stuff. So just work with whatever you have. I mean, honestly, I know a lot of artists that use like a blue ballpoint pen and a pad of paper. So to be creative, it's nice to have all the stuff. And we know I love all the stuff and then some, but you don't have to have it. So if you don't have it yet, that's not a reason to not be creative. Then as far as space, in the newsletter, I gave you some ideas about having either like a mobile cart or maybe a big tote bag that you can move around your house if you don't have an assigned space. But look at the space you do have. Maybe there's a closet you could use. And I feel like by giving yourself some physical space in your house that's just for your creativity, that somehow clicks something in your brain that tells you this is important. Because things that are important, we give time and space to. So if your creativity is important to you, you have to give it time and space. Food is important, therefore you have a kitchen and you make time to cook or you make time to pick up food. But we have to think about the same thing for our creativity. How can we feed our creativity? And it needs time and space. So if you haven't found a space in your house yet, grab an old tote bag or a beach bag or something that you can keep just a small journal. If you're into journaling, remember, this is all about what you like to do. Maybe you like to stitch, maybe you like to crochet. It doesn't matter what it is. One of the newest things that I've kind of just found, which I guess has been around for a while, but there's so many things to look into, is somebody doing glue books where they literally just have a book and they glue in pictures from magazines that they like. Now, you may ask, what's the purpose of that? The purpose of that is you enjoy the activity. We all like pretty pictures. We all like gluing, I think. If you aren't here and you don't like glue and scissors, you haven't met the right pair of scissors then. So find something that you can do anytime. I mean, maybe, you always watch Netflix with your family at night. Well, there's no reason that you can't sit on the sofa with a magazine, a pair of scissors, and a glue stick and go to town gluing while you're sitting there. It doesn't mean that you're not spending time with them. So, but again, we need to give ourselves time and space to be just who we are without thinking about anybody else. So I will stop harping on that. You get it. Time, space, make it. So let's, you would like to meet up with different scissors? Here, I'm going to give you all a fun little tour. Here's my scissor drawer. What kind do you like? I've got them all. I even have X-Acto knives. I have rotary cutters. Oh, look, I have these French scissors. Anybody come to one of my Christmas gigs at Whimsadoodle, and we made fringe jelly prints. If you don't like glue and scissors, we can't be friends. I'm afraid we can't. I'm sorry. I like glue and scissors. My husband's still very scared that his retirement plan involves glue and scissors and some magazine pictures. So, obstacles. By the way, sparkly squirrels. They're like shining everywhere today. So, I'm trying to stay focused. So obstacles. So some of the ones that I come up against are the big one, life. Life gets in the way. And I mean, we all have that. There's times where we're getting ready for vacation, our house is a mess, our family is coming to visit, and it just seems like I can't possibly do one more thing than I am doing. But I have found that even if I can take 5 minutes, come in here, and I could do something simple. I'm gonna do it now because I said I was gonna work. I hope you guys are all working, because if we're sitting around, this is a perfect time. So I'm gonna work while we're talking. But then the problem is I work and I get distracted. But obstacles, 5 minutes. I mean, again, I like gluing stuff down. It makes me happy. So even just taking this couple of minutes, even if I have to stay up 5 minutes later, I mean, really, at this point, getting 5 minutes less sleep, it's not going to kill me, because, what's 4 hours and 55 minutes versus 5 hours? It really makes no difference. You have to see what I'm doing. Okay, well, here, I'm throwing down tissue paper because that page needed something. I took a class this weekend. This is a side note, but it's a way to keep my creativity going. And one of the things the instructor talked about was, when you have a journal like this, I typically I work on a page. Like I don't have a white page in here. I have a white page in here. So if I come to this page, I am going to work on this page until I have at least a background. I probably won't finish it, but I would keep working on it until I have a background. And that's just the way I've always worked. But this instructor talked about having a journal like this, and every time she sits down, she thinks, oh, I'm going to add some collage. So she'll grab her collage, and you saw I already added some to one page somewhere in here. And then I'll just flip through and I'll be like, oh, I think this page needs some. And she works all the way through the book, or not even all the way, because there's no time commitment. Whatever work she does is just that one little thing. Or maybe that day she wants to work with Posca markers. So she comes through and she puts Posca markers all over it. And the one thing that I enjoyed looking at when I was looking at her finished journal was that there was some cohesiveness in her whole book, which I never knew I liked until I saw it. Because my journals, those of you who have seen mine know that there's a page, a page, a page, a page, but they don't really relate to each other, other than the fact that every page has teal on it, because that is the best color ever invented. So I just thought it was a neat idea to have a set journal that I was going to work in that way. So far I've come through and I've done stenciling. So I literally will grab one stencil and I will come through, and I don't do it on every single page. I don't do it in the same spot. I don't even do it always in the same color, but I will come through and add a stencil to, you know, half of the book or something. But you can see, like, this stencil I went through, I've used a lot because I love that little stencil. The hot pink was another repetitive thing. So you'll see there's a lot of hot pink. And I think that whenever I finish this book, which I have no idea when that's going to be, because I feel like this is something I could work on forever. Because even a page that maybe is done, I'd be like, well, I feel like it needs some dots over here. So I feel like this, I could just keep working in and working in and working in. And this is just the fun to me. So this is the fun part. So this is the part that you guys don't always see of what I do, because when you're an artist and that's your work, it's somehow different in that the things that you guys see are not always the things that I'm working on. A lot of times when I'm getting ready to teach a class, the thing that I'm teaching, I've been doing for so long, I've already moved on to like 5 other things. So you all don't usually see the stuff that I'm just kind of working on, like behind the scenes, I guess you would call it. Marianne, this journal was, I'm assuming you're talking about this journal. This was a handmade journal. There's a yearly group that I'm a part of called the Bookmaker Collective. And this was the last class that I did. And it was with Willa Wanders on Instagram. That's her Instagram name. The class was with her. And so it's hand-painted canvas. And then we created and bound our own signatures. And so this is the book that I'm working in right now. And I will say the smaller journal does, because you all, if you know me, you know I love a big book. The bigger, the better. Like, I have books that I can't even fit on camera because they're so big. You wouldn't be able to see the whole page. But I do like this little journal for things like this. This little one that I showed too, this is a pre-made journal, and this is by Arteza. It comes as a pack of 2. So you get 2 of them, and I think on Amazon it was around $24 for 2 of them, and it's really nice paper. I'd say it's a little thinner than a watercolor paper. I can't remember the poundage. I should have probably saved the label, but if you're wondering, that's how you spell Arteza. they have a lot of new products that they've come out with. And so I kind of liked these journals. It was a different size than I normally work in. And they do have multiple sizes and multiple paper thicknesses, so you can kind of play around. I'm not sure if they're sold in any store, but honestly, I haven't really looked for them. So that's an Arteza book. But so obstacle life. We just have to find our ways around it. One of the other obstacles is space, which we've talked about. What other obstacles have you guys run into? I mean, I know we all have kind of the daily life things that get in the way, like work. But what else seems to get in your way? I know, I have an odd situation in that I have made art kind of my job. So it's easy for me, especially on the weekends, to tell my family, oh, I got to go to work, because it makes it seem more important than saying I'm going to go play in my art room. But it's not any more important. I mean, just because it's work doesn't mean that it's any more important, because again, I may just be gluing paper down to a page. Okay, so Karen, that's a good obstacle, thinking that you need more or different products. So let's talk about that, because I have been thinking more and more about that. It's almost like Karen can read my mind, which if she can, she should not, because it's scary. Anyway, so thinking you need a different product, or also thinking that you need the perfect thing. I have been working on lots of collage pages, and I get to that point where I'm like, oh, I know exactly what I need. Let me just go dig through 6 folders and find that perfect thing that I know I have. And then 4 hours later, I haven't found the perfect thing, but I found 10 other things. So thinking that you need the perfect thing, or maybe you just need a different product, or maybe you should try that color, or again, there should be a therapy group for art supplies, except none of us would go to the meetings because none of us want help. You have to admit that you want help when you have a problem. And none of us are willing to do that. So the support groups are going to be empty. But feeling like we need more, or someone like Ranger posting their new product that you have to go order. I have to. I mean, I just have to. And I will tell you how many have to products are still sitting on my desk. So I think part of it is the sparkly squirrel. Ooh, let me try that. And again, I'm not one to talk, because if you've seen my post, you notice that I suddenly took up ice dyeing a fabric. Why? Because I didn't have enough things to do in my time? No. But I saw a video, and this woman made a journal, and it was all fabric, and she said that she dyed the fabric with an ice dyeing technique. Well, then I fell down a rabbit hole, because ice dyeing, what the heck is that? Well, I found out, and I ordered all the products. And last weekend, I ice dyed fabric. And is it cool? Heck yeah. Let me go grab it. Talk amongst yourselves. I'll be right back. I actually took it with me today because I had to show somebody. Because, oh my gosh, look at that. By the way, I'm not going to give you any links to ice dyeing because I'm not going to be an enabler. But look at that. What am I going to do with it? I don't know. I'm going to put and tell it it's pretty. I may just put it as a runner on my dining room table so that I can just stare at it. But this was a really cool process. I've done like RIT dyeing, you know, where you buy the boxes at the grocery store. I've done some of that, but oh my gosh. I mean, it's just so cool. But anyway, back to the obstacle of finding new products. I have tried to scale back in certain areas. So for example, this book. I think this book is going to be a little life-changing. I may be putting too many expectations on the poor book, and the book doesn't know what's coming. But number one, the way of working, that's completely new to me. And then also, it's a different style than I normally do. So that's challenging for me. And then having some sort of cohesion is going to be different for me. But if you can tell, I decided to use a limited palette, and I posted about limited palettes on Instagram the other day. So if you follow me on Instagram, there's a post about limited palettes. And what I've started doing is every week or so, like I don't have a set time, but instead of just pulling out all the colors as I think of them, I've decided to pick out like somewhere 3 to 5 colors every couple weeks, and I put those on my desk. And I can use those plus black and white. And that's all I'm going to use until I feel like, okay, I've exhausted that and I'm going to find a new palette to use. But the reason I wanted to do that is because, number one, my pages lately have been getting busier and busier and busier and busier. And I think it's because my paint is so close at hand that I could just reach around and grab 32 colors and use them all. So by having this limited palette, I put it on my desk. That's all I'm allowing myself to use. So it's almost like my own little challenge that I'm giving myself. But if you'll notice, like, so I've used all these colors, but I don't have to use them straight out of the tube. So again, this is that color study that I started doing. So these are my 4 colors for this week, and also my 4 colors. So I'm creating like a little formula, like the pink and this yellow gave me that. Plus a little bit of green gave me that. So, but I started to build these colors. Like, I just think I'm not a purple person. I know I have purple hair, but I don't use a lot of purple in my art. But these purples are like, I just love them. And I would have never known. So when I was grabbing my black, I didn't put my glasses on. So I didn't know that this was Prussian blue. And I thought I was mixing black, but obviously it wasn't. So that's kind of my 5th color, since I said 3 to 5. So that is my 5th color. But that Prussian blue plus this hot pink, plus then I add white for each of these, but to give me all of those colors that I'm able to use now. And this isn't even all of the possibilities. These are just the ones that I've gotten so far. But you can see that as I use those colors, they all work together. They're not fighting against each other. And even though there's a lot of color and a lot of detail on here, it doesn't look as busy as the pages that I have been using or have been working on. So by giving myself some limitations on what I can let myself use, I feel like that's actually helping me expand. So that goes back to having more, needing more, buying more, getting the perfect thing, all of that kind of stuff. That maybe we can have all the stuff, but we don't have to use all the stuff at the same time. So by giving yourself a limited palette, or maybe those of you who have known me for a while know, I think it was 2 years ago, the 100-day project, I did a collage challenge. So I had a little collage journal, which I don't know where it is right now. I put all of my books that were finished in a big basket. Well, this one isn't done, but this was my little collage journal. And I guess this was my first limit, because number one, it was tiny. I had never worked this small before. And I had just a little lunchbox that had all kinds of collage bits and pieces in it, and a glue stick and scissors. And that was all I let myself use in this book. I couldn't go around my studio looking for the perfect thing. I just had to use whatever was in that box. So I guess this was my first attempt at limiting myself. And now it's limited palettes. I've done it before with time limitations. I did a 15-minute challenge. I think that was 2 years ago too. I don't know. Did last year even count? So it could have been 5 years ago. It could have been 3 days ago. I'm not sure. But I did a 15-minute challenge. It's here on YouTube, so you can always watch that too. And 15 minutes, I could only use what was on my desk, not because I said that, but because in 15 minutes, I didn't have time to go looking for anything. So I think by giving ourselves limitations, so basically what I'm saying is you can go buy all the stuff, just don't use it all the time. But I think having things is a way to spark your creativity, because I know when I get a new product, the first thing I want to do is try it out. So I feel like, if you get a new marker, I mean, what's the first thing you want to do? You want to see what it looks like. So, you pull it out, and if you're like me, you're like, oh, I wonder if that's water soluble. So then you get it wet and you find out, nope, it's not water soluble. So I feel like those of us who like to buy supplies, we have kind of this natural curiosity to find out, well, what does that do? Well, what happens if I do this and do that? And that just leads to your creativity. So I don't think the answer is to not buy things. My husband's going to be upset to hear that. But the answer is to not buy things. You can keep buying things. That's what I mean. But just limit what you have on your desk at one time, maybe. One way that I've done that, I had recently, because I've said many, many times, I have a small studio. It's tiny. So I don't have a huge amount of storage space in here. I mean, I make use of every single inch that I do have, but I don't have a huge amount of space. But my guest room closet is kind of what I call my overflow storage. And so I just recently reorganized that. And what it allowed me to do was to take some of the things out of my studio that I'm not using all the time. So, for example, if I'm not using my encaustic supplies right now, well, I can take them out and I can put them in my overflow. And then I have room to bring in something else that I am working on right now. So maybe I can bring my watercolors in here. But then again, because of my space, I am somewhat limited in what I can have in here. And maybe that's why I like this room so much, because this room is the smallest space I've ever had as a studio since I've had a studio. And it is the most productive space I've ever had. So bigger is not always better when it comes to art spaces. But I think it's because I do have to keep everything somewhat streamlined in here. If you saw the room, you would not think the room is streamlined, but it is, because I have twice this much. So, Marianne, why did I order this? I have talked about this many times that boxes show up at my door. They have supplies in them, and I briefly remembered that there may have been a YouTube video I watched that made me order them, but I don't remember the video. I don't remember what I was supposed to do with the supply. So then it ends up on the shelf. And probably, 2 years later, I'm like, oh, let's see what this does. So again, I'm not going to tell you to not buy the stuff because somebody has to keep Blick in business, and I have determined that that is my life mission. So buy the stuff, but give yourself the challenge of maybe limiting what you're using. So for example, I have, I don't know, 40 different kinds of tissue paper, and I grabbed one sheet that kind of coordinates. I mean, we're sticking in the same palette here. And that's what I'm making myself use until the sheet is gone. And I feel like if I can make art with the few things that I'm giving myself, then that's going to make me a better artist. Because having all of the right supplies doesn't make you a successful artist, or it depends on what your definition of success is. I mean, my success is if I make something that I like. So maybe that's a low bar for success. I mean, yes, I would like to make money at it. But like I said, if I was on a hilltop with no internet access and nobody knew I was doing art, I would be doing the same thing that I'm doing right now. Except I wouldn't be talking to you. I'd be talking to myself, which I do a lot too. But so whatever your definition of success is when it comes to art, then where was I going with that? I was going somewhere. Sometimes I need a map of where my thoughts were. But we were talking about just having supplies, having too many supplies. Now I have tried my darndest to limit how much supply I am buying. So for example, Tim Holtz came out with a new color. And typically I would have been online the second after he announced the color, ordering my kit. But I have decided that I really don't need another blue right now. I have enough blues, and I'm not really using my Tim Holtz stuff at the moment. So I didn't order it. And I'm very proud of myself because I wanted it. It looked like a really pretty blue, but I didn't order it. So maybe I must be hungry because I'm thinking everything's relating to food tonight. So maybe it's like when they say, a diet should be about moderation. So maybe our art diet should be about moderation too. Oh, that was another deep thought. So it's not that you can't go buy the supplies, but you don't have to buy all the supplies. You don't have to buy every color that Tim comes out with. Don't tell him I said that. I'm sure he wants you to buy every color he comes out with, but maybe we don't need it. But then again, if Tim Holtz products are your favorite thing in the whole wide world, then you should buy it because it makes you happy. And the whole point of this creative journey is to find something that makes you happy. Because I really don't care. I mean, I love it when you guys say, oh, your pages are pretty or whatever, or, my husband actually recognizes something that I paint. I think that's great. But again, it's not the reason I do it. I do it because I am a better human being when I take some time for myself And I allow myself to be who I am really meant to be. And I think I was born to be a creative person. So I feel like all of those things lead to us having a more full life. And that's the purpose of us being here. Golly. I have been reading too much Glennon Doyle and Brene Brown because I am starting to sound like Tony Robbins. Yes, I read him too. But so obstacle, maybe too many things out. So how do we get around that? Let's put some things away. If you have a closet, let's put some stuff. Remember, those of you who had kids, remember when they were young and they would have so many supplies, and you would take a whole, or not supplies, toys. And every 6 months you would go through their room and like take half their toys and put them in the closet, and they'd forget about them. And then when you bring them out, they would think they were new again. Maybe we need to do that with our art supplies. Maybe we need to, just go through and weed out some of the things and put them away for a while. Like maybe let's decide for, the next 4 weeks that we're going to work on art journaling. So if there's something that's not art journaling related, let's put it away. Or if you want to do stitching or whatever your thing is, and your thing can change. No one's going to brand you as an art journaler and say that you're never allowed to do embroidery. We can have a multi-art existence. But maybe we just need to set some limits for ourselves and kind of treat it as a challenge. So that's one way to get through that obstacle. Other obstacles that people have told me about, again, time is always the biggest one. And one thing I read, I don't remember where it was now, but in the book they were saying, stop saying I don't have time for that and say that's not a priority for me right now. Because when we decide where our time's going, we're deciding what's a priority. So, for example, we don't say, oh, I don't have time to feed my kids, because obviously that's a priority. We should keep them alive, at least so that they can take care of us when we're old. And, but so just by changing that mindset, I have found that for me, saying, because I would say, oh, I don't have time to be creative right now. I don't have time for that. I have to do this and I have to do this. But if I say to myself, being creative is not a priority right now, that kind of hurts. And I don't like saying that. So that tells me that my creativity is a priority for me. And if it's a priority, I need to make time for it. So, and of course, there are times in my life where I honestly don't have time. When your kids are sick or you're getting ready to move, or there are big life things that happen, but that doesn't mean it's going to be like that forever. So don't just give up on being creative. Just say, that's not happening for me right now, but I know I'm going to get back to it. So, and then again, find that 5 minutes. Grab a piece of tissue paper and a glue stick and go to town in a little book, just to give yourself that reminder that this is who you are. So what other obstacles do you guys have? You want to drop them in the chat. I'm going to keep thinking of, people have told me a few, but I think we've covered most of them. I know money is an issue when it comes to supplies, but like I said, you don't need the most expensive supplies. And, start with cheap watercolors. Start with, craft acrylics from Michael's that are, $1 or so. You don't have to start with high end. And yes, are you going to get results with Michael paint that you would get with golden paints? No. But again, to me, the point is not the outcome. The point is to do this because this is who I'm meant to be. So it doesn't, the outcome is less important to me. The process is the important part. So if you don't have money to spend on supplies, you know, make do with what's around your house. I mean, one thing that I've always seen, and I've tried a few times, but it's never spoken to me, is coffee painting. You know, people take a cup of coffee and a brush, and they create these gorgeous portraits. You can go on Pinterest and search for coffee paintings, and it's just amazing what they do, like on computer paper. So don't feel like you can't be creative because you can't go to Blick and drop $500 on all the supplies you need. So money, time, space, life. I guess that kind of sums up all of those are kind of the big categories for obstacles. You know, some of us, health may be an issue. I know I have a couple friends that are artists that there are things that they can't do, either because they have arthritis in their hands. Some of my friends have fibromyalgia. And I always think of Matisse. So as he got older and started getting arthritis, and I can't remember the order that he went to, but the two things that he did, one, he had a painting assistant who would come in the morning, would take his paintbrush and would tape it to his hand because he could no longer hold the brush. And he would paint all day. And at the end of the day, the assistant would come and unwrap his hand and take the brush off. But that's how much he wanted to paint. I mean, he could no longer hold a brush, but he still wanted to paint. So he would tape a paintbrush to his hand. Matisse also started exploring collage because, again, he wasn't able to hold a paintbrush, but he was still able to cut out abstract shapes. And so he started exploring collage. So just because we can't do what we want to, and maybe it's not even health related. You know, for example, I enjoy painting on really big canvases. I did a 4x6 painting at one point, a commission, and I loved painting on that size. But I live in a small historic home that was built in 1925. So painting on large Picasso-sized canvases is not in the cards for me right now. That's why I have little books. I can fit a lot of these little books in my little house. So we may have restrictions, but again, those may not be restrictions forever. And then Laura mentioned self-doubt. That is one that I can give you tips, but I feel like that's something that you have to kind of explore. So obviously, I have self-doubts all the time. And when I started, it was even worse. I remember my very first art show asking my best friend probably 12 times, do you think I should apply? It was a $25 entrance fee. It was in my neighborhood. And when I think about it now, I'm like, why the heck didn't I think I should apply? But I just thought, oh, I'm not good enough. I don't want people to see my stuff. And I think the one thing, well, there's a couple things. So one thing is that I have detached myself, I guess is the right word, from the outcome. So like I said, I enjoy the process. And if something great happens along the way, that's a bonus. But that's not my purpose. My purpose is to do the gluing and the cutting and the painting and the stenciling and the doodling. And if it ends up looking like something decent, then I'm extra happy. But that's not my goal anymore. My goal is not to show something to my mom or my best friend and have them tell me how great it is. I mean, again, that's a nice bonus, but that's not my purpose. But I didn't start out that way. I think the more you can spend time being creative and playing and experimenting, it lets you kind of free up. Because I remember when I first started art journaling and I would start a page, I was always frozen once I finished the background. And it was because I thought the background looked so good and I was scared that I would never be able to do that again. So I didn't want to mess it up. But by doing it over and over and over again, I've come to realize that, well, if I did it once, I can do it again. And it may not look exactly the same, but I'm okay with that because I'm not mass producing something. I don't need to make 100 of something that all looks the same. So I think a lot of self-doubt goes away the more you practice. And creativity is a practice. It's a lifelong practice. If you ever get to the point where you're like, I know it all, I don't need to practice anymore, then you are probably delusional. I don't feel like art is ever something that I'm going to feel like I know it all. So I feel like I just need to keep going. And the more I keep going, the less self-doubt I have. And the great thing is, if you're at home working in your journal or whatever it is you work on, you don't have to show it to anybody. So don't feel like you have to, even if people ask to see it, you can say no. You can say it's not ready or I don't feel like it's done yet. You don't have to let anyone see your journal or, whatever your creative love is. It can be just for you. And then when you are feeling more confident, you may get to the point where you do want to show it to somebody. And so I think it's all just kind of on a timeline, and everybody's on a different timeline. I reached a certain age, I don't know what that age was, where I really just kind of stopped caring what other people thought. So now I'm showing you guys a journal that literally has like brayer paint all over it. And whereas normally, I can tell you 5-6 years ago, you would have never seen any of this. I would have had one of my finished journals that all the pages were waxed and pretty looking, and you wouldn't be seeing all of this. I would have done fresh paper, but I don't feel like that's real. It's almost like that idea when people talk about Instagram life versus real life. Like this is real life. This is how I am. And I don't know at what age you get comfortable with that. And I'm sure it's different for everybody, but I think the self-doubt goes away when you just stop caring what other people think. That sounds really awful. My mom would be very upset. But really, I just don't care. If my son says something, well, it'll hurt my feelings, but still, this is who I am. So right now I am hot pink, which is unusual for me, but so I think the self-doubt it's something you need to work through. And it's just a matter of trusting yourself and remembering what your purpose is. If your purpose is to be a creative person, and as long as you're doing something, then you're successful. And the more successes you have under your belt, the easier it is to think that you're good at what you do. But you can't get there without practicing. So a lot of people ask me, well, what's the best way to be creative? And my answer is always be creative. If you want to make art, you should make art, and you should make a lot of it. And a lot of it's going to suck, but there's going to be those pieces where, you're going to keep looking at them because you love them. But it takes a lot. So one thing I'll remind you is that Picasso, over his lifetime, painted over 50,000 paintings. And I would challenge you to name more than 10 or 15 that you know. There's a lot of them you don't know. And I'm pretty sure there were a lot of bad ones that maybe nobody ever saw and they ended up in the trash. So I guess my overall thought is, if you want a habit of being creative, then you need to make a habit of being creative. And I know that sounds like kind of a cop-out, but it's true. If you want to make good art, you have to make a lot of art. And the only way to do that is to do it consistently and just be prolific and make as much as you can. And look at each piece. You may look at a piece and be like, oh, I don't like that. Think about it first. Why don't you like it? Is it the colors? Is it the composition? Is it because you didn't leave any white space? Is it because you don't like that size? Whatever it may be. But keep working through. It has to, like I said, it has to become a habit. So I want to thank you guys for joining. We're just a little over an hour now, and I don't want to keep you too long because you probably have other things to do, like being creative. If you have all your stuff out, I would like to challenge you to keep going if you can, or get the kids in bed and then keep going. But go ahead and start your creative habits and keep it moving. Try a bunch of stuff. Make art to make art. And remember, keep commenting here. If you think of something later on, feel free to drop it in the comments. But I want to thank you guys for joining me, and I will see you next time. I'm going to try to schedule these a little more regularly, and we'll have topics to talk about. So I want you all to have a great night, if it's night where you are, and happy arting. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.